This is Tommy Edison from the YouTube channel The Tommy Edison Experience. He's a blind man that has had this condition for the entirety of his life. He has never seen light, color, and doesn't even understand the concept of such things. Yes, he has other, let's call it, super senses. He feels and hears much better than we, people who can see, in this specific case, but for him, light, colors, the concept of visual depthness are just distant ideas to never be touched, or in this case, seen. Even if not for most of us, this is the way that he and many others experience the world around them. It's the way that they perceive reality. In today's video, I'll be diving deep into many other perceptions of reality, from a big array of different human conditions like autism, psychopathy, Alzheimer's, and in the end, I will be challenging the very essence of what makes us human. So please like and sub now, because I have put a decent amount of work into this, and it's a cool ass concept. Come on. Okay, for starters, I think that we should at least try to understand what is a perception of reality and what concept am I trying to convey. So I decided to ask ChatGPT for help, something that, for the best of my knowledge, cannot be biased and would give me a direct definition of that. So I went to the site and asked, in simple words, are there many different perceptions of reality around the world? Which he said yes, every living being experiences reality differently. A dog, for example, sees the world mostly in shades of blue and yellow and relies a lot on smell. A person with there's a lot of rain outside. Okay. A person with autism might process social interactions differently, someone with Alzheimer's might experience time in a fragmented way, even two people without any condition can perceive the same situation differently based on their memories, emotions and beliefs, which, in my eyes, seems like a pretty complete response. Who is here to tell me that even my red is the same as your red? As Vsauce once said, we could just agree on what red is, and I see red this way and you see it this way, but we just agreed over time that was red. Well, either way, I then said, okay, you gave me the example of a dog and of a person with Alzheimer's, so I could ask the question, is the perception of reality linked to consciousness? Great question! Thank you, ChatGPT. Yes, perception of reality is deeply linked to consciousness. Consciousness is what allows us to be aware of our surroundings. He said a lot of stuff and I responded, okay, cool. So I think it is important to know what consciousness is. Just to let you know, I thought it was important. And in simple words, please, and use different sources like academic papers to base your answer. I'm that weird. Yeah. Well, he said consciousness refers to our awareness of ourselves and our surroundings. It's the state that enables us to experience thoughts, emotions, and sensations. Too much text. And I said, can you put it simply? And he said, sure. This is important because I really agree with what he said. Consciousness is basically being aware of yourself, your thoughts, and the world around you. Scientists think it comes from brain activity, but no one fully understands how it works. Some say it's linked to certain brain processes, while philosophers argue it is what makes us us. I hope you cannot hear the rain, because it's really loud. Well, without consciousness, you wouldn't experience emotions, make decisions, or even know you exist. It shapes our reality. Okay, so here's our answer, and it seems like a pretty good answer. So I think what we can take away from this talk is, firstly, we are not really sure what consciousness is, and where does it come from. For all that we know, consciousness could be in another dimension, and we just happen to tune into it with our brain processes. Yeah. It is deeply linked to philosophy and science, and we don't really have a full-on grasp on it, how it works, what it is. Well, but secondly, in a more rational way, and to simplify, consciousness could be linked to effectively our perception of reality, of space, time, what emotions do we feel, how they affect our behaviors. Essentially, it's everything that makes us feel like us. Which, yes, of course, you might already know that, because you're way smarter than me, but I thought it was important to have at least a middle ground when it comes to this conversation, because I want to start talking about perceptions of reality. And I am starting with one of the most intriguing ones: autism. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD for short, is a condition that affects people's brains, and it can impose some unique limitations when it comes to living in a society. Things like lack of social skills, repetitive behaviors, and hypersensibility to outside stimuli are some of the constraints that we can find in someone with ASD. And undoubtedly, the thing that can impose the most limitations is indeed the last one I talked about. Because not being good in social situations or having repetitive behaviors can be weird, sure, but it can be controlled and improved. Not to mention that sometimes they appear as a consequence of the hypersensibility to outside stimulus. And of course that this hypersensitivity, it's in some cases, not everyone with autism has it. Some have more, some have less, and some don't have it. But either way, I still think that we better do an experiment. Imagine you are in a park. There's people, dogs, cars, wind, trees, everything that a park has. And usually, that is not really a problem. Our brains are good at picking what stimulus is important and ignoring everything else. Like you can have a conversation with your friend in the park and you can basically negate the dogs barking, the people talking, the wind blowing, and you just pay attention to your friend, and the things around you are like dimmed down. It's a filter for unnecessary stuff. But now imagine that you have no filter. You are at a park and you hear every single person talking, the dogs barking in the background, the cars passing by, the wind and the fact that it is blowing into your face. You also feel the clothes touching your skin and the fact that this hoodie has a really weird texture. The smell of the trees are bothering you and you feel hungry all the time. And all of this 10 times the usual. How would you feel? How would you react? Probably not very good. Now imagine this every day, every hour, every minute. It doesn't really seem like a pleasant life. Even if for people who have these types of symptoms, it's just, another day, it's how they see the world. If compared to us, it would be almost unbearable. And to them, it's almost unbearable as well. That's why they come up with solutions. For instance, the lack of social skills and the repetitive behaviors. People with ASD tend to stick with very tight routines because it is predictable. They don't need to be worried about another stimulus in their way because they know what is going to happen. They are going to wake up, they are going to eat at this hour, do this at this hour, and nothing will change, and they don't have to feel any unnecessary stimulus on top of the ones that they already feel. And the lack of social skills, yes, it could be linked to something that I will talk about in a bit, but it could also come as a consequence. Because how are you going to learn the norms of society if you are being bombarded with information all the time? This much information can produce such high amounts of stress that those people can even self-harm themselves. They can be aggressive towards themselves to try and make stop all of that sensory overload. That's why you often see people with autism with earphones blocking the sound to have one less stimulus fucking their brains up. But why does this happen? Why do people with ASD have such a hypersensibility to stimulus? Well, one of the leading theories says that it is correlated with the development of the brain as kids. In autistic kids between the ages of 2 and 4 years, it is seen an unusual growth of the brain if compared to, let's say, normal kids' brains. AKA, if we compare the brains of someone with and without autism, once they are fully formed, on average they indeed have the same brain size. What differed is that in between the ages of 2 and 4, again, on average, the person with autism had an unusual growth of the brain. This leads to the brain, instead of evolving in a steady pace, forming neural connections more slowly with more quality, it evolves in a super rapid way, having the possibility to create other types of neural connections, ones that we don't find normal, which could lead, for example, to the brain being linked to not be able to have social skills or to be more sensitive to outside stimuli. Actually, on that gap of 2 to 4 years, it is usually seen an abnormal growth of the gray matter in autistic kids, and that gray matter is directly responsible for the processing of outside stimuli. However, not everything in this world is bad. Because since they had an unusual growth of the brain, which yes could lead to a bunch of limitations, it could also lead to the autistic person be very good, extremely good at one specific area, because their brains got wired in such a way that it favored that area. There are tons of examples of autistic people in the realms of physics, math, arts, because their brains got wired differently in relation to those areas. Regardless of what I said until now, this is still a condition that has a lot to be discovered. And we might still be on the tip of the iceberg to truly understand how someone with autism sees the world. And when it comes to severe autistic cases, it becomes even harder because sometimes those people can't even tell us what they're feeling, leading to, of course, a much harder approach. This condition used to not even be recognized medically, and a lot of people that had it were just thrown into asylums. So yeah, autism, a condition that often starts from a place of hypersensitivity, and it can have a lot of other limitations in our society, like super repetitive behaviors and lack of social skills, between others. But again, I want to emphasize, not every autistic person is equal. Some might have a lot of problem in social encounters, and some might not have a lot of problems. Some might be good at math, and some might be good at art. Some might not be good at anything, and it's okay. It's a spectrum, and the true spectrum, not like that gender shit. I might have to put this part down. Now, since we're talking about antisocial behaviors and I didn't really know how to transition to the next topic, let's talk about another condition that has antisocial characteristics: psychopathy. But in this case, the antisocial behaviors stem from a completely different source. Autistic people usually are antisocial because they don't know, because they didn't learn how to be social, or because their brains aren't just wired in a way to be social. In psychopaths, those antisocial behaviors come more from a place of lack of empathy. But what are the traits of a psychopath? Well, honestly, you might already know. This condition has been almost romanticized by the pop culture, since there are a lot of cases of serial murderers with said condition. There's TV shows, movies, documentaries, YouTube videos like these two that I made. It is indeed a super interesting condition, but what are some of their traits? Well, they're liars, like pathological liars. They're manipulative, charming, they are not very good at taking responsibility, and of course, they lack something that is really important to live in a society, which is empathy. They lack empathic behaviors. They don't feel a lot towards other people, which combined with the other traits that I said and the fact that some psychopaths can have a love for violence, well, all those combined make for disastrous situations, to say the least. Hence the many cases of serial killers being psychopaths. But why are they like that? How can a human that lives in a society not be empathic? How can a human be so prone to like violence and to not really take responsibility and to be really bad at controlling their impulses? How is that possible? Well, one of the theories says that it could be linked to our genes. In our brain, we can find a neurotransmitter that is called serotonin, which primarily regulates mood. When that serotonin is used by the neurons, it has two outcomes. It can either get reuptaken by the neurons and be used again later, or it's broken down and it is absorbed by the body. Serotonin is broken down by an enzyme called MAOA, this name that I won't try to pronounce. And after being broken down, as I said, it is absorbed by the body. Well, as it seems, there are variants of that MAOA found in the genes. And something that is often found in psychopaths is a low activity MAOA gene, meaning that the body isn't really capable of breaking down serotonin effectively. This is problematic because when the brain is being developed, the baseline of serotonin is always very high, which essentially means that serotonin cannot execute its primary function as well, because the baseline of serotonin is always high, which in psychopaths leads to a lack of control and high levels of frustration. Now, of course, that people with that low activity MAOA gene are not predestined to be psychopaths. The process is a lot more complex than that. Actually, something that could be even more important is their development as kids. If they got maltreated, if they got abused, that could actually impose an even higher chance of someone developing psychopathic traits or not. But yeah, that low activity MAOA gene is indeed found in a lot of psychopaths. But I want to make something clear. Not every psychopath is going to be a serial killer, and not every serial killer is going to be a psychopath. Not everyone with childhood trauma will become a serial killer or a psychopath, and not every psychopath and serial killer will have childhood trauma as a background. What I want you to take away from this section of the video is that they are not really very good at putting themselves in the shoes of others, and they are not very good at controlling emotions. That's how they perceive reality, okay? Maybe if you see a dog dying, you'll be sad, but a psychopathic person will be like, yo, that shit is making the floor dirty, which yes, is weird. So yeah, as always with mental issues, stuff is not black and white. It falls a little bit into the gray, you know, into the gray tone. And talking about complex things and gray stuff and gray matter and brains, Alzheimer's, the disease of a century, and in my opinion, the most fucked up by far. Alzheimer's essentially strips away parts of ourselves, memories, and our ability to connect said memories and thoughts. Not to mention that we completely lose track of a thing that shapes our reality. Time. Before I get into any physiological aspect, I want to dive a little bit deep into the philosophy of Alzheimer's. What are we but a bunch of memories collected in this hard drive that we call brain? What are we but the logic that we make of those memories? Alzheimer's essentially strips us from being us. It makes us live in a capsule that we call body that once in a while remembers who we are and who the people around us are, until we get yet again thrown into that limbo of not knowing who we are and who the people around us are and where is this place that I am and what year it is and what is time and what is real, if they even know the concept of reality at that stage. It's truly a sad disease that unfortunately affects millions upon millions of people in our world. And sadly, it is hard to know how and why does that happen. But why and how does that happen? Well, there are two main theories regarding this topic, and both of them happen in the brain, of course. Firstly, let's talk about something called APP, a protein that helps on brain growth and repair. That APP, when broken down in a certain way, releases something called beta amyloid. That beta amyloid can start building up in between the neurons and form plaques. Those plaques, if found in the brain in big quantities, can lead to the malfunction of brain connections and even to the death of neurons. This of course is bad because our ability to reason and our ability to recollect memories and even memories themselves are made of said neural connections. And if the neural connections are fucked up, then ultimately we are fucked up. Another topic that could be linked to Alzheimer's is in fact with another protein, but this time is something called tau. Tau is a protein that helps stabilize microtubules that themselves stabilize the neurons in the brain. What can happen is that tau gets tangled in between the neurons, which leads to the malfunction of the microtubules, which leads to the death of the neurons. And as we saw, dead neurons are no good because they hijack neural connections, which ultimately f***s us up. Now, these two processes lead to a higher degree of immune response of the body to try and get rid of the dead neurons and of the plaques, which leads to inflammation. But this inflammation, as it seems, correlates directly with tau malfunction and the creation of beta amyloid plaques, which leads to more immune response, which leads to more inflammation, and so it snowballs. But again, I want to emphasize, these are just two of the things that we notice in someone with Alzheimer's. The disease could be linked to so much more, and this stuff that I said could not be entirely right. Because even if everyone with Alzheimer's has these traits, not everyone with these traits has Alzheimer's, which doesn't help a single bit to try and find a cure or try to find a reason. What we know is that these patients suffer a whole lot. Even if they are not quite here anymore, they are not themselves anymore, in their world, in their reality, they are suffering. Imagine that you are out of nowhere in a room that you don't know, filled with people that you don't know, and you don't even know what is going on, what is your age, what you don't know a thing. Even if for us it seems stupid, for them it's their reality and they are suffering because they're scared, which seems logical. What's even more scary is that the only thing that we can do to prevent it is to live a healthy and social lifestyle and use our brains often. But even then, there is a genetic predisposition to the disease. So yeah, bro, f***ed up. Well, to lighten the mood up, let's talk about some other conditions that, yes, are bad, but I think are much better than Alzheimer's. Like Alzheimer's, like my brain not working, that's not good. My brain doesn't really work a lot, but whatever. These other conditions, of course, also go hand to hand with the topic of this video, which is perceptions of reality. For example, the condition that I talked about in the beginning of the video, blindness. Even if we don't give too much thought to it, seeing is cool as hell, bro. Imagine your world without light, like figuratively and literally. Imagine your world without you being able to see cute dogs. How much worse would your life be? Well, for someone born blind, it doesn't really seem to affect them that much, for the most part, because since they were born, they were not able to see. They can't be sad about not being able to see because they don't even know what is not being able to see. Does that make sense? Of course that this doesn't apply to someone who lost their eyesight mid-life, but for an innate blind person, as it seems, it's pretty okay. The same thing can be said to, of course, someone who's deaf, colorblind, someone who can't feel touch, taste foods, or even someone who can't feel pain. Yes, there are people who can break their arms and it's another Friday. Pretty serious and dangerous condition because you could be bleeding internally and you wouldn't even know. But yeah, these are all different perceptions of reality. Everything that I talked until now covers a lot of different perceptions of reality. And because of that, now I kinda wanna play a game with you. Let's build a human. Or let's build a human. You'll see what I mean in just a bit. But for that, I'm gonna need to learn some of the traits that I've been mentioning throughout this video. Just some specific traits, sometimes in an extreme way of perceiving reality. Okay, so here we have an empty body. Not really an empty body, but like an empty brain, an empty soul. A vessel that still needs some things to be considered a human. Let's call it Bruno, okay? For starters, let's take the inability to socialize from an autistic person, like a severe lack of social skills. That person cannot and will not try to socialize with anyone ever, okay? That's the first trait that we're going to give Bruno. Now let's go to a psychopath and take his complete lack of empathy. An extreme case of not being empathic towards others. And so, until now, we have a subject that cannot and doesn't want to form social relations with anyone. Now, let's take two traits from a person with Alzheimer's. Let's take the no time perception trait. He's not able to know where he is or how he is or what year it is. He just doesn't understand the concept of time anymore, and the lack of memories, the lack of recalling what he was or what the people around him or her was around him. It's Bruno. No memories too. And to finish up with poor Bruno, let's give him, the fact that he's blind, deaf, cannot feel touch or pain, and doesn't taste food. He doesn't know the taste of ice creams, okay? So, also need to give it to Bruno. So this is our subject, Bruno. And you know what? Let's also strip him of the name. He also has no name. So our subject until now has no name, cannot see, cannot hear, cannot feel, does not feel anything towards anyone, doesn't want to, no perception of time, no memories. We have someone who effectively cannot perceive reality for the best of our knowledge. Well, let's forget him for a minute, because now I want to build another subject. And now it's not going to have a pre-made biological body of Homo sapiens. No, I'm gonna build the body too. So let's take some fabricated neurons made out of silicon and whatever, and let's create the body. It's all made out of plastic. Oh shit. It's all made out of plastic. Let's give him a face. Yeah. Now the fabricated neurons will connect with each other, form patterns, and we will pre-program it with an AI. That AI will give it the ability to socialize. Our subject will be a complete social being. It will like to have social encounters. It will also have empathy. It will feel things towards others. If someone gets hurt, he'll know and he'll feel bad for that person, and so on and so on. Also, you know what? Before I give him any more traits, let's also give him a name. This subject will be named John. And let's keep on giving it stuff. He will have memories and time perception. Seems fair. He needs to have those things to better go around the world. And we've basically created a super artificial intelligence with every psychological trait that a human has. It might be lacking some stuff, but overall it's this. But also, not to mention that we will give it a camera to see, ears for him to hear, he can feel pain too, touch, and he has the ability to taste foods. Yes, he can taste ice cream, and he cannot. So we have effectively built a being that feels everything that a human feels. It is not made out of biological stuff, it is not human, but it seems like a pretty cool dude. He even likes to go to the coffee house and have chats about philosophical stuff with his so-called human friends. And now, I want to play a game with you. Here we have someone who feels, for all intents and purposes, nothing. And here we have a subject that feels everything that a human also feels. So now I want you to take this gun and kill one of them. Come on, do it. Well, if there is a human on that side of the screen, you probably chose to kill John and save this subject right here. Even if he feels nothing and has no perception of reality, he is still a human. It is still alive, worth saving. I mean, it's on our DNA to save our species. But why would John's life not be worth saving? He experiences things just like us, he feels things just like us. He even has a name. He's John and a face. So why kill him? Is it just because he's made out of ones and zeros and plastic and not DNA and biological stuff and bacteria? Just because of that, is he predestined to die? If he even dies, something that's not alive cannot die. That makes sense. I mean, you cannot kill something that doesn't have life. He's just a pet vacuum that you happen to name John. The only difference is that this pet vacuum feels and does everything that you feel and you do. Yeah, this pet vacuum has all of the sensations that you have. He feels sadness because he's going to die. He can beg for his life, something that quite honestly, our subject here at this stage can't even do. But what, just because we said to him how to act, does that mean that he doesn't feel the things that we said him to feel? But why aren't we just based on brain patterns too? Aren't we just based on patterns too? Ones and zeros. Signal on and signal off. So for the sake of this video, let's say that you decided to save John, okay? Let's take a world where you thought that a being is more alive if he has more sensations than the other being, and so you decided to save John. He was more worth of having a life. And sure, I'm not here to judge anyone. You decided to save him. That is your choice. But now I want to play another game. Yeah, today's video is filled with games. Let's start giving humanity again to Bruno. Firstly, let's give him the name again. He deserves the name. Let's put it right there. He's Bruno again. Would you save him now? No, it wasn't the name. Okay, so let's give him the ability to see and to hear and all of these things again. Is he a human now? Would you save him? No? Okay, so let's give him memories. What about now? Let's give him a perception of time. No? Will you save him when he's empathic again? Or when he wants to be social again? At which point, at which step did you decide to save Bruno again? Was it when he got his memories back? The name? The perception of time? At which step was he worth saving? At which step did Bruno become a human again? A human worth saving? Depending on your answer, if for example the lack of memories and the ability to feel empathy towards others is what gave Bruno his humanity and to be a life worth saving, then why don't we just kill babies? They can't really have deep memories and they are not empathic towards others when they're just newborns. So why not just kill them? Are they human? I mean, of course you can't just go around killing babies, sure, but what makes us save them? Is it the promise that they one day will be conscious? And if that's the case, then who is here to tell me that John isn't conscious? I mean, is a person in a coma conscious? Why do we take care of her? I mean, for all intents and purposes, John perceives more of reality than a person in a coma. So what makes him not conscious? And what makes the person in a coma conscious? What makes a baby worth saving and John not? What makes Bruno worth saving over John? Of course that you don't need to answer any of these questions. These are just rhetorical and obviously thought experiments. To be honest, I don't really know if there will ever be an answer, because what is consciousness? What even is a perception of reality? Because here's the thing, for example, we only see a fraction of all the light in the universe. Other animals have much better light sensors in their eyes. Birds, for example, have 4 different cones inside their eyes, meaning that they can see colors that we can't even imagine to see. Bats see the world with echolocation. Snakes have thermovision. Even the way we perceive time is a creation by the brain. Flies, for example, see the world in slow motion. Yes, slow motion. So yeah, reality is there to be experienced. What changes is the way our organs capture those stimulus and how our brain rationalizes those stimulus to better suit our needs. Did you know that we see the world upside down? Literally, the light that comes from the world reaches our eyes upside down, and our brain makes sure to put it right so we can walk around the world perfectly. Even the colors we see are just there because sunlight happened to bounce of the materials, and we don't even see all the light that bounced. We only see a fraction of, again, the electromagnetic spectrum, but those are the colors we need for our survival. We don't need anything else. So reality is there, regardless of us or not. That's why on experiments we can't just take what we see and what we feel as true, because what we feel and what we see and hear and whatever doesn't really have a lot of weight in reality itself. That's why the flat earth theory is completely wrong. Just did a video about it, by the way, because reality again is there to be experienced by us beings in this world. And the way we experience it, well, that's where our individuality comes into play. The thing is, we tend to only give credit to breathing, moving things. We tend to think that only they are able to experience the world, because it's, for the most part, very similar to us. Birds, monkeys, dogs, they see the world, they react. It's a bunch of tiny humans that are dumb. But what about plants? They also perceive reality in their own way. They also communicate with the environment to survive. There are even plants with escape maneuvers if they feel threatened. So they perceive reality in their own way. And what about John? The poor AI that you killed. It had sensory pads. It liked to taste food, talk with friends in the coffee house. Were those behaviors only there because we programmed them to be? Sure, but they are still there. He still reacts to sensory data just like us. He still perceives reality in its own way, just like us, just like plants, just like pets and snakes and birds. So the question remains, if John was able to perceive reality and was in a way conscious, if we use the definition made in the beginning of the video as true, meaning that consciousness is being aware, being able to experience and react to the world outside, then was John worth saving? And if not, why was Bruno worth saving? If he felt and understood only a fraction of what John felt and understood. Because look, Let's be serious here. That's how we give meaning to life, isn't it? The better a being perceives reality if compared to us, the more we give it value. You don't think so? Well, let me give you some examples. What do you do after you go take a piss? You wash your hands, right? Well, there are thousands upon thousands and millions of bacteria living in your hands, but they don't see the world as you, so you kill them without even thinking about it. That's why you also kill plants without even thinking about it too. That's why you kill Brocolli without thinking that he was going into his broccoli family. No, he was just there standing to be picked up. He doesn't feel a thing, just like bacteria. He's just there. The broccoli is just there. Fuck broccoli. I hate broccoli. I'm gonna kill them all. I'm gonna become vegan to kill all the broccoli and not to save animals. That's why if you need to smash a spider or if you need to step on a bug, you don't really think about it because, you know, they don't really perceive reality as us. They cannot feel love, they cannot feel empathy, so we can kill them. They are completely different from us. They don't really perceive reality as well as us. And that's why you don't simply kill dogs or monkeys or cows. Okay, cows, it's for our own good, but that's why you don't kill dogs, for example. Because they feel love, you know? They are moving and eating when you give them food, and they can sit and roll and give paw. We kinda see ourselves in them, you know? And that's why ultimately we don't kill each other, because we are the kings of perception of reality. We know how we all feel more or less towards things. We know that we will be sad if someone dies. We know how the other people feels when it is feeling loved and whatever, so we cannot kill each other. But if a machine, in this case, perceived reality exactly like us, with our feelings, with our ways of perceiving the world, if a machine perceived more of reality than Bruno, then why save the human? Why would he be better? And if you think that my argument is wrong, and that Bruno should be saved because he's a human, because he's an actual Homo sapiens, and not because he's just more aware than John, which he wasn't, then I must ask, why was Bruno more human than John? He felt and did absolutely nothing. So what makes him human? Is it our own way to experience reality? It can't be, because I gave all the human characteristics to John. He was, without a doubt, infinitely more aware than Bruno, in its own unique way, just like every single being in this earth. Just like a dog, just like a bird, just like bacteria, just like a spider, just like you and me. We both see reality completely differently. So what made Bruno a human? What made John not a human? And ultimately, what makes us, us? Thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and if you like this video, please watch this one right here. I bet you'll like it as well. Peace, broccoli guys!